AB 2723. Thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. AB 2723 deals with a couple of terms I'm going to be using here. We know that sexual trafficking of young children in California is a crisis, and there's some pretty strong current laws on the issue of trafficking. There's this other area out there that what we call is the act or attempted act of soliciting for the purpose of prostitution, a separate element. And how you look at these depends on if we're going to deal with them in the delinquency system, treat them criminally, or deal with them in the dependency system, dealing with the actual illness that the people are dealing with. What AB 2723 simply includes is two codes dealing with minors caught in either of those situations and allowing the courts to may either go to delinquency or dependency. There's some confusion on this. It wasn't until last night that we actually had, this was on consent until we received a letter from a DA. And having read the letter over a number of times, I think there's just confusion on the issue of may and the issue of dependency and delinquency. Mm-hmm. So I would ask for your support to go forward.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Do we have others speaking in support today? Thank you.
Susan Abrams with Children's Law Center of California. Again, we represent the youth in foster care in Los Angeles and Sacramento counties, and we are here in support.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition?
Yes.
Please come forward to the table. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Terry Wiley, and I'm an assistant district attorney with the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, and I'm speaking on behalf of District Attorney Nancy O'Malley. We oppose this bill on a number of grounds. One, I think the bill presumes that the criminal justice system today treats this particular population like we did years ago, treating them as committing crimes, and we have long since moved away from treating this particular population in that manner. And let me just say that as head of our juvenile division, and I see the full scope of juveniles from beginning ages 10 through 17. Probably one of the most difficult populations to deal with within the juvenile system is this particular population, because they are a population that is, many are abused, many are being pulled in different directions by their exploiters. They're being exploited, and they think the person who's exploiting them loves them. And so the problem with this bill, by taking them out of the out of the delinquency system and putting them exclusively in the dependency system, is that we have the delinquency system has programs that have been set up to address the issues that we have to deal with, and as I say, with a particularly difficult population. And I'll give you an example. One of the models that we use in dealing with this particular population in juvenile in Alameda County is the multidisciplinary system, in which we bring in numerous CBOs, nonprofits that deal with specific issues, and we have what is called safety net. And on a weekly basis, we bring everyone together and we discuss between 15 to 18 girls that are on the calendar, and we deal with it from a multidisciplinary point of view. Whenever they are arrested, no one is charged. They come into the system so we can put them in the multidisciplinary system, and we can address a lot of their issues. Now the problem, if you pass this bill, is that the dependency system is not set up to deal with this particularly difficult population. And I'll give you one example of just housing. The foster care system, you will have many foster care families who will be unwilling to take this particular population because they're a very difficult population to deal with. We believe that the programs that we have set up to deal with these young women is far beyond anything that will be offered by the dependency system. And I'll give you another example. In Alameda County, we have the Young Woman's Saturday program. And this is a program where we bring the young women into, they all get together on a Saturday. And in many of their cases, that Saturday is the only day of the week that they get a full meal. We feed them. We bring in different, each week we bring in different speakers to address different aspects of their lives, and many of them have successfully graduated from the program after about a 16-week program. So I think that the delinquency system right now is really the best system to deal with this particularly difficult population.
Okay, thank you. I think we may have a question from Mr. Stone.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to address his concerns, but okay.
Yes, let me give you that opportunity.
Thank you very much. I actually agree with him. I think everything he just said is what this bill does. You know, this word says may. He can go delinquency or dependency. This does not exclude him from either one. It is a very complex issue, and we need to give the flexibility to the experts to do what they think is the best way to handle with this. Because in some cases, these are young people who are victims, and sometimes they may have, as he addressed, maybe another way to deal with the dependency system. This bill just codifies, as I said in the beginning, the issue of somebody who's been identified as trafficking for the police, or somebody who has been identified as soliciting, to be brought into one, and it allows them the authority to either deal with an dependency or delinquency situation. So everything he says is right. That's why I said when I read this letter 3-4 different times, what it says is what this bill does. I think if we had more time to deal with this, we just got this
Right.
morning.
Yes.
We could have sat down with them and said, show me what you're talking about, because I actually agree with you.
Right. And I will just say, for the benefit of the members of the committee, it is a recommendation of due pass to Judiciary Committee, and we have someone here who, Mr. Stone, might like to ask a question and help us reach clarification.
Yeah, I don't know if I specifically have a question, but I'll tell you, if you're being challenged on this bill by Alameda County, that's actually very significant, because Alameda County has one of the best, most wide-ranging programs for CSEC youth really in the state.
Yeah, we recognize that.
And the problem, and I know this was on consent, and I've really struggled with this, and I'll explain. But knowing that it was coming to Judiciary gave me some comfort, but I think we should deal with this now. The problem that I have with this is you're adding certain kinds of behavior to the prostitution statute so that it allows law enforcement to pick up young women or men, mostly young women, underage, as prostitutes. The problem is that not every county has the same level of programs or services, and many do, in fact, treat these young women or men as criminals, not as the victims that they truly are. There are a number of bills moving through. I have one, Holly Mitchell has one, that would change that underlying assumption. And where I struggle with this bill is, until we change that underlying assumption of who's a victim and who's a criminal, you're actually giving law enforcement more opportunity to pick up young women, young men, and treat them as criminals, unless there's a program in that county or something to divert them out. I think Alameda County, where I disagree a little bit, is in semantics. They collect them because the DA does such a good job. They collect them in the delinquency system, but don't treat them as delinquency system members at all. They have programs to send them out to. Other counties are going to collect them into the delinquency system, not necessarily the dependency system. Now they're criminals. And by allowing that option until we deal with that underlying law, which we're trying to make that change and say, no, you can't treat them as criminals. You have to have a program available for them to divert them out to. I think we're just exacerbating it, because now this bill would allow more pickups and more bad results ultimately. So I get where you're coming from on this, and I don't disagree once we fix the inherent problems in the system. So if we can do that this year, then your bill adding this definition to what would then be able to be picked up in prostitution, put into then the programs that should be there, that is what we should be doing. I'll be very happy to expand it. But I've been really struggling with expanding it now because we don't have the other programmatic parts of the system fixed.
Well, I think you brought up some really good points, Member Stone. I think what I'd ask you to do for today, then, since this came up in the last minute, is that allow this to go forward. I'll work with the Alameda. Happy to work with you. And if we feel like it's going to be a problem, then we'll just work on it later.
I think it is, again, because if we could do this, if we can do the work we need to do this year,
sure,
and then do what you're wanting to do next year or add it into it, I think that's a great idea. But doing this beforehand, because if this becomes operative before we fix the other system, we're now allowing those counties that don't have the right programs or attitudes with respect to this victim population, we're going to have now more young men and women treated as criminals as opposed to victims. And listen to your statement. I know that's not what you're trying to do here. And again, that's kind of what I've been struggling with on this. And so for me, it's maybe a little bit premature. I'm not sure how to blend this in together without exacerbating the problem ultimately that we're trying to fix.
Well, I think that's what this is a process about, is working together for the best solution. So if we can continue on this, we'll work on it, and we got some time before your judicial committee.
All right.
So I ask for your aye vote today.
Yes, Ms. Grove.
I want to thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the author for bringing it forward. I've been working on some human trafficking bills. I actually interviewed and talked to several human trafficking survivors, most of them trafficked as minors. And some of the comments that they said were, in no offense to what you're doing in Alameda County, but they're like, oh my God, I wish they would have just locked me up for 72 hours. It would give me 72 hours not to have to do 20 tricks a day. You know what I mean? A 72-hour rest period, I guess you'd say. So I just think that, the bill says may. You don't have to do it. I applaud the program that you guys have in Alameda County. We have a great program in Kern County. We have 24-hour, immediate 24-hour. We have 24-hour response teams that work in sites. Like my daughter works with an organization called Magdalene Hope to rescue girls off the street. They encountered a 12-year-old or 14-year-old in from Atlanta. Within 20 minutes, the police were there, the Special Victims Unit. They got her off the street, got her into housing, because we have a coalition of people that work. So it works well. And I understand that not all the counties will have things like that. But we've got to stop talking and start acting. We need to start arresting the Johns. We need to make sure that they have to explain to their wife why they've been arrested for purchasing a minor child for sex. I mean, there's a ton of things that need to be done so that we can assist law enforcement, the DA's office, and prosecutions and arrest, getting these people, thrown in jail for purchasing human beings for sex. And so I know I'm not an attorney like the head of the judiciary, but man, anything that we can do to help these girls get off the street. And when I read your letter over and over again, I saw it and I just thought, even a minor, what do you determine a minor as trafficking and engaging in survival sex? Survival sex. My God, does that just not kill you as a woman? Survival sex? Are you kidding me? Get the girl off the street and lock her up. At least she's in juvenile hall and she's safe. She's got 3 meals a day. She's sleeping in a clean bed and nobody's arresting her or molesting her in the middle of the night, right? I don't know. I don't know what the worst of two evils is. On the street doing 20 tricks a day or being in juvenile hall with 3 square meals a day. Mm-hmm. So I don't, survival sex? So, I just think the time for this legislature, it's time to stop talking about it and start doing something about it. So I applaud the author for bringing the bill forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Thurman.
We we're presented with choices where neither may be the best. We clearly don't want our children being exploited on the street. At the same time, sometimes when our children who've been sexually exploited are incarcerated, they continue to be abused even while they're under court supervision and incarcerated. And so, first, I do want to thank the author. I believe that the author's intent is to help our children who've been sexually exploited, and I'm very knowledgeable of the programs in Alameda County. I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Wiley, with DA O'Malley, with the probation department in Alameda County, who's made a statement that children who've been sexually exploited are victims and should be supported, and that they should not be criminalized. And so what I'm interested in is how do we make sure that this conversation not give some counties the ability to treat these children in a way that criminalizes them rather than supports them. And so I don't know if the author has given thought to that, because I am concerned that not every county handles this need for children who've been sexually exploited in a way that is supportive. We have this term that we use when we work with young people. We call them crossover youth, young people who've been sexually exploited, who've also been in foster care, and we don't want them. They cross over into the dependency system and the delinquency system, and we don't want them being criminalized. We want them getting supported. I'm asking the author if you've given thought to how the permissive nature with it could play out in good situations in some counties, and then in other counties we might find that these same children are being criminalized. And if you've given thought to that, and if you're willing to work with the counties to ensure that there's consistency in how these children would be treated and supported.
Actually, current law, Section 300 of the Welfare and Student Code states, 300, a child who comes within any of the following description is within the jurisdiction of the juvenile courts, which may judge that person to be a dependent child of the court, and then it goes down and lists all the different reasons. The bill that we're talking about just adds that component underneath it. So current law already states may. This is not something I dreamt up. It's already been associated there. Back to, I think, the larger issue is what Senator Stone was saying, is that we're in this transition within the state on how we deal with it. I know San Diego's a leader on human trafficking. Our DA is out in front as much as Alameda is. And I just heard from Senator Grove talking about what they're doing in Kern. So there are a number of counties doing a very good job in this. But for your clarification, if I thought about it, it's actually in the current law.
I understand that it borrows the same language from Section 300. I just want to make sure that we're not opening the door for counties to treat children who've been sexually exploited as criminals as opposed to as victims, and to support them. And so I'd like to also ask Mr. Wiley, in stating the DA's opposition, you talked about the bill assumes that all counties treat these children as criminals, and you talked about all the great programs that Alameda County offers. I wanted to just ask you, the flip side of that question is, what would it take to support these types of programs being built out in Alameda County and elsewhere through the dependency system?
It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money. One of the problems, and I'll give you an example of what we have to deal with all the time in Alameda County now in our juvenile division. So when a young woman is arrested for a 647B, let's say, solicitation, and they are brought to our juvenile justice center, they're immediately the next day released to the assessment center of the social services. Well, the problem is that the exploiters are parked right outside, and the only security at the assessment center is a minimum wage security guard And so you get a lot of these young girls who run away and continue to be exploited. That's just one example of what the dependency system is finding to be very difficult, because they are a difficult population to manage. So it's going to take a lot of time in order for them to work out the parameters of how to keep the young women safe. Because, the biggest issue that we find with this particular population when you first make contact with them is there has to be some separation between the minor and their exploiter before they understand they're being exploited. And what I'm talking about is, when you go talk to them the first day, they're talking to you about how the exploiter loves them and how they miss the exploiter. And then it's not till you get to that second or third day that they thinking begins to change a little bit, and they realize, you know what, I've been exploited here. And so it's going to take time for the dependency system to get set up to deal with this particular population. Now, specifics, I could be here all day talking to you about specifics, but I think that even from our perspective on the delinquency side, it took someone like, and with the leadership of Nancy O'Malley. I mean, she formed the HEAT Institute, in which we are she's conducting HEAT Institute sessions all over the state of California, so that they're reviewing how different areas of California are dealing with the CSEC populations. So it really takes that kind of leadership, which is what has changed a lot of the thinking on the delinquency side. And it's going to take similar leadership on the dependency side to acknowledge that this is a whole different group of population that they're going to be dealing with, and that they're going to have to try and
Just staying with your example for a second, when you gave your initial testimony, I was concerned that you were saying that if these are young people who were served in the dependency system, that all the services that have been created were going to go away. I guess I want to ask you slightly differently. Are you saying that that the difference in your experience in Alameda County is that when these youth are served through the juvenile system, the delinquency system, and versus the dependency system, that if they're in the dependency system, you don't have, it's voluntary and they're going to leave before you can help them and make that separation from the abuser? Is that what you're saying? Or
I think that is one of the natural effects. One of the natural impacts is that it's one of the things that we offer, and I think that's effective on the delinquency side, is we can offer the carrot and the stick. And with this particular population, sometimes that can be the most effective way to change the thinking.
Okay, one last question, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Because of your testimony that you just answered from Mr. Thurman, is if this bill was to pass, does it affect you because they have a choice, or?
Well, here's the problem that I think that we have is that we feel that the language of the bill is ambiguous. It's very ambiguous, and which leads to confusion. And I actually think that Mr. Stone actually made some very, very good arguments as to, I think the bill it's a little bit of the cart before the horse, and that I think that there are some bills that are currently pending that if they are put into place, it might be more effective and less ambiguous.
The only reason I ask is because, counties don't operate like Alameda County. I mean, I know you guys have a very, very good on the criminal side or the
Right.
juvenile side, the arrest side.
Right.
But, I've worked with 3 different counties, and including my own, and they have a phenomenal nonprofit. It's Coalition Against Human Trafficking. They raise hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They have groups that participate. They have housing. We're building a house to house 25 young girls. I mean, you know what I mean? It's so I I guess, what works for you in Alameda County is working great, but, this bill would be very beneficial to let our nonprofits do some work in certain other counties. So I guess if it doesn't harm you in Alameda County, but it allows other nonprofits that, there are people wanting to get involved to stop human trafficking organizations, because they see it as an issue, and I don't think they see the government acting fast enough to get these young girls off the street, and they're trying to help. Does this hurt you? Because if it doesn't hurt you, I don't know why we wouldn't allow the nonprofits to participate as well.
I think the ambiguous nature of the bill and the potential to cause confusion can be harmful to what we do in Alameda County.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for the discussion. It was interesting. I think we actually all learned a lot, and the bill is going over to the Judiciary Committee, where I think I will be supporting the bill today. I want your discussion to continue. I think Mr. Stone and his staff will, along with other input, will be able to maybe tease out some of the finer points here and work on the bill in that committee, or not. But for our purposes today, I think the intention there of aiding these young people is very clear. So I think we had a motion.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and a second. Take the roll.
Okay. Health Committee.
It's I have to go to Health Committee? Oh.
Bonilla.
Aye.
Bonilla, aye. Grove. Aye. Grove, aye. Calderon. Lopez. Aye. Lopez, aye. Excuse me. Mainshine. Stone.
Aye.
Stone, aye. Thurman. Thurman, aye. Bill is out.
The bill is out.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you.
Yes, thank you.
Coming up for their last one.
Okay, Mr. Stone. And Mr. Thurman and I are going to have to go to Health, so is this maybe a quick bill? We can vote on it and... Mr. Stone, AB 1702.
Yes, thank you. So this is a bill currently under California law. There are some categories, especially where a parent has sexually abused a child that then goes into the dependency system. California has said that that is not an option then to reunify. And what this bill does is add to that list that if a parent has been involved in the sexual exploitation, trafficked out that child, again, the reunification then is not an option. These are not healthy families. There's not necessarily a situation that is redeemable in that situation, and that child should not face the expectation of going back. I think that's very harmful for the child. Now, there are some circumstances, and there's some opposition or some concerns that we've been working with from some of the organizations that I tend to work very, very closely with. And the concern that's been raised is a complex one, that where a parent has been coerced, a parent is brought into this where he's multi-generational, the situation is a lot more complex than a simple solution, and we're going to continue to work on that. But again, the underlying notion here is that there are certain situations, and a clear exploitation or facilitating the exploitation of that child is something that clearly should not then result in reunification. We have to protect the children in that case. The other little bit more difficult, we're trying to work on some language definitionally on how we get there. We've gotten a little bit back and forth on that. But the bill before you today is, I think, defensible and is good policy, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. And support?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association. We're co-sponsor of the measure. This really was driven by SB 855, which is the bill that was actually the subject of discussion on the prior bill that was just under discussion in your committee. As we've been implementing the move of these children into the dependency court system, we're finding that unfortunately we do have cases where the parent has perpetrated the sexual exploitation on the children. One case example from a colleague prior to the enactment of SB 855, the child had been commercially sexually exploited, found their way into the child welfare system, and the CPS system was going to have to be required to reunify the child with the father who had actually pimped her. the girl ran away. And so that's the reason for this bill. We don't want to re-victimize these children. Thank you.
Absolutely. Next, and yeah, we have a motion and a second in support.
Madam Chair, Rosanna Carvacho here on behalf of the County of Alameda in strong support. We are a co-sponsor as well. Would like to thank the author. It's clear you need to run, so I will just leave my testimony at that and ask for
All
your
right.
vote.
Others, sorry about that. Both of us have to get to health. Yes.
Good afternoon. Karen Keene on behalf of the California State Association of Counties in support.
Thank you.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors in support.
Julian DeVores on behalf of the Urban Counties of California in support.
Great.
Monica Zemi on behalf of National Association of Social Workers in support.
And in opposition? Okay, we know you are working currently with the opposition. We do have a motion and a second. Would you like to close?
I would, and my joint author, Mr. Mainshine, I'm sorry that he's not here for this bill, but I'm assuming he'll come back in and vote on it. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. We'll take the roll.
Bonilla.
Aye.
Bonilla, aye. Grove. Calderon. Lopez. Lopez, aye. Mainshine. Stone.
Aye.
Stone, aye. Thurmond. Thurmond, aye. And it's 4-0.
4-0. We'll leave the roll open for members to add on.
Mr. Thurmond?
Do you need to add on to a consent? We already did it.
Consent. Thurmond, consent, aye. Let's go real quick. I think you're on everything. On, Assemblyman, maybe 2809, Thurmond, aye. That's it.
That's it? Is that all of those?
That's it. Mr. Page. Do you want to add on?
Yeah. Okay, so number one.
Consent.
Oh, consent, aye.
Mainshine, aye. On consent. Maybe 1702, Stone.
Aye.
Stone, Mainshine, aye. Maybe 2005, Ridley Thomas, Mainshine.
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Consent. Maybe 2723, Assemblymember Chavez, Mainshine.
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Consent. And AB 2809, Rodriguez, Mainshine, aye. Maybe 1702, Grove.
Aye.
Grove, aye. And I think I've got everything
I have
else.
everything, I think.
Yes, you're good.
Are we done? Did everybody add on?
Yes. Now we're just waiting for her to come and close.
No, she's not. We're adjourned.
We're adjourned? Oh, thank you.